Kia ora and welcome to this episode of the Nishcast, and I believe I speak for us both here at the Nishcast that this is the best ever Nishcast episode we have recorded in our careers at the Nishcast. The Blackcaps, Aotearoa's Test cricket team, have won the World Test Championship final against India, the first ever World Test Championship final. Ka kite anō to BJ Watling. He ventures off into the Waikato wilderness, and this Test cricket team will continue to march forward into cricketing glory. We are here to chat through all business World Test Championship final, all about the Blackcaps and savouring this pretty amazing moment of cricketing and sporting achievement for Aotearoa. And in case you needed to be reminded of this, Aotearoa is the best sports nation in the world. What we are going to do is we're going to let this simmer. We're just going to let this result simmer after recording this episode, and we'll bounce back for an almost daily Blackcaps podcast on Monday, and we'll put in a good stint there, a good shift of mahi there, but we'll just let the emotions and everything settle down, simmer, and then we'll bounce back early next week on the Monday with a bit of extra juice regarding the Blackcaps, so keep an eye on that, and remember that Patreon is the best way to support the Nishcast at the moment. You can just join up patreon.com/LNishcast, EL Nishcast. It's just a great place to show your appreciation for whatever the fuck we do, and it goes straight to us, so it's just straight up the guts, and you get some good karma points, get a bit of juju your way, as well as those extra podcasts. So we do appreciate all our patrons. And we are recording this on a Thursday, so that means tomorrow is Friday, and we have our bi-weekly email coming out, which has all our Nishcast content and a couple extra yarns. You can sign up to that at the nishcast.substack.com. Just enter in your email, and then every Monday and Friday, you'll get an email straight from us to your inbox. And yeah, you get all the content that we have on our website delivered to you, as well as extra yarns as well. And I think I'm going to do tomorrow a bit of rugby league, because it's all cricket today. So tomorrow in the email, maybe a bit of Reece Walsh with Queensland, New Zealand Warriors signing Chad Townsend, just stuff like that to get our writing juices flowing and offer a bit of extra goodness as well. And as always, we are writing about Kiwi sports at the niche-case.com. This is where I usually pass the baton over to the wildcard for a dose of mindfulness, but I am hijacking that today because I have a little booklet here, the Fairy Oracle of the Patu Paerehe, the ancient oracle of Aotearoa. Instructions for working with 34 New Zealand oracle cards. Gave these a little shuffle this morning, and I pulled a card. Patu Paerehe, o te arawai o Yunuku. Apparently, that translates to the Fairy of the Rainbow Bridge. And this is a Patu Paerehe card. So there's a couple of these, and within the deck, and they reflect a phase of the moon. And we have a full moon right now, which is convenient because the moon phase of this card is full moon. Light peaks, the flower emerges, and then the first sentence in that paragraph, that description is, with the light reaching its peak, it is a time to celebrate the attainment of your goal and the reaching of your objective. The Blackcaps are motherfucking World Test Championship winners under the full moon. They have attained their goal and reached their objective in Test cricket. Wobbly Wildcard, how are you feeling?
Mate, how good is that? It's attaining the goal. It's hard not to think about, like, because I pulled the old all-nighter for that one. I did not sleep until about, like, well, I don't know, after they'd done the presentations and all of that kind of stuff. So, like, that's something closer to 7 a.m. I think the last time I was up that long, and it's just a strange parallel to be considering like how it feels today for having done the all-nighter watching the Blackcaps. Last time I was up that long it must have been the World Cup final, and the contrast and feelings between that morning and this morning is like complete opposites, like the other end of the scale, but for each of them, like it's kind of nuts, and probably, I don't know, probably a good thing to sit back and reflect a little bit on that as well, and just like the what do you call it? Like the spoils of success, they don't happen without also like the devastating blows of defeat, and it is all on that same sliding scale. The Blackcaps have lost one of these major tournaments in just the most heartbreaking, awful way, and they've just won one in such a like it's not like they absolutely dominated India off the park, but they were solidly like just slightly better the whole way. They never faltered. It was like a tightrope thing. That's what Test cricket is like when you're at just the highest level, and it was such a highly executed game of cricket where like batting was just ruthless. Like both teams really struggled. India didn't even get a batsman past 50 in the whole Test match. Runs were so difficult to come by. Bowlers were fantastic. They did not like let up throughout, and to be able to grind away over it's about 3.5 days of cricket that actually got played, but over 6 days overall, because you're definitely feeling it when you're sitting not out overnight for like consecutive nights without having, like Williamson and Taylor were, when you get their washout day and everything's just sort of hit on pause. That's tense. That's tricky. Just to execute so consistently like that without faltering, it's like a higher wire act, and the Blackcaps were just fantastic. Like, and they were so good in the series against England before that, and it's hard to think when they left for this tour, like this is what we were hoping might happen in a best case scenario, is win the series against England and then win the Test Championship, and they've done both.
It's ridiculous. Like here I was a couple months ago, like just curious how to see how this team would go overseas, and they absolutely destroyed England, and then just came out against India and executed all their skills to the best of their ability. I think before we get into some individuals wildcard, these are some notes or stats that I put in my review yarn this morning that I think tell the story of a Blackcaps team effort. The top four in the first innings accounted for 144 out of the 249 runs. The top four in the second innings did all the mahi. And that featured a 15-over effort from Latham and Conway. Obviously, Conway did he have the finish with the top score of the game? 54, Williamson hit 52. Yep, so shout out Devon Conway, top scorer of the game. First innings, Latham and Conway bat to the 34th over. Second innings, they bat through to 13 over. So not quite the 15-over mark, but they did their job, and in both innings, the top four batsmen did their job. And we haven't been graced with a solid top order for a long time. Most of my Blackcaps supporting tenure has not featured a solid, let alone world-class top four. So I enjoyed that, and the culmination of those four batsmen is just four batsmen doing their job for the team. Not that the bowlers couldn't have scored runs, because the Indian bottom five batsmen scored 45 and 37 runs in either innings. Obviously, the Kiwis were only required for one innings, and in that one innings, they scored 71 runs. Big factor here is that Ravi Jadeja and Ravi Ashwin were, I can't get into the minds of the Indian selectors, but their batting prowess would have been a factor for their selection in these conditions, one would have to imagine. But it didn't help them. And the Kiwi bowlers scored more runs than the Indian batsmen. And the Kiwi bowlers also shared around the wickets. Southee had 5 wickets. Bolt had 5 wickets. Jamieson had 7 wickets, and Wagner had 3 wickets. So Southey, this is all first innings tallies. Tim Southey 1, Bolt 2, Jamieson 5, Wagner 2. Second innings, Southey 4, Bolt 3, Jamieson 2, Wagner 1. So they've shared around the wickets within the bowling group, and they have shared around the runs or just the work, the intensity with the bat as well. And I think, there were Watling and Nichols didn't do much with the bat in the first innings, and the Gronholm, they're kind of like stuck in the middle between the batsmen and the bowlers. They might have chimed in. They didn't really get an opportunity, so it's nothing against them. But they all played a role, and it's a pretty comprehensive team effort where the best batsmen scored most of the runs. The best bowlers for the Kiwis shared the wickets and chimed in with the bat to outplay an England bowling unit that most would consider to be better with the bat, if you catch our drift here, which we make fun of a lot. But in this one test, considering the frailties of batting in such conditions, was pretty helpful. So how do you just deal with that team nature of this performance where the runs were shared around, the wickets were shared around, and it was just the Blackcaps team coming together and firing on all cylinders in cohesion with each other?
It was, and that was always kind of the way that they were going to have to. It's the way that they were going to have to. I think the way that anyone is going to win a test match, like in a 2020, you can have a guy who comes out and opening the batting and blasts 120 off 60 balls or something like that. Sometimes that'll happen, and you're almost certainly going to win that match from that point on. It's pretty hard to lose when you've got one guy who can deliver a performance like that. In test matches, that's not really the case. You get a lot more 100 scored in losing efforts, 5 wicket bags in losing efforts. You do need to. You can't plaster over any cracks. You gotta be sustained and consistent and at a high level throughout. And the Blackcaps, I think the best way to illustrate this was something I was feeling through that Williamson and Taylor partnership, as it began to feel like they were, it was never a cruise, because runs were difficult, as I say. Runs were never easy to find, but as it began to feel like, we were going to get over the line here, I just didn't really feel like India had a lot of variety to what they were offering. And Ravi Ashwin bowled excellently. He was definitely the most dangerous of the Indian bowlers, and asked a lot of questions. I thought they probably underused him a little bit to later in that partnership. So he did get the 2 wickets. He got both the openers out, and not too far apart. And at that point where you've gone from 30 odd without loss to suddenly you're, I think, 44 for 2, I think it was. And there was just a little bit of there's still less than 100 runs to win at that point. But if they'd gotten a couple more quick wickets, it's one of those things where we're saying India always a couple wickets away from genuinely threatening, but a couple wickets away is attainable. That's one great over, that's doable. We just had to keep on holding them at an arm's length, and it felt like we're earlier on in the day when we needed wickets, and there were a couple of, they weren't big partnerships, but there were definitely a couple stubborn partnerships where it just it took a little bit longer, like Rishabh Pant, for example, just swinging the bat, charging down the wicket and doing crazy things and continually getting away with them. Jadeja, I think, plugged in for a little bit with him. That was a partnership that felt like it was taking a while. And let me check the scorecard, because there was a wicket in particular that I think helped spark this idea. But it felt like as we were in a situation where we needed to break partnerships, we had better options. It was Jadeja who was caught behind of Neil Wagner's bowling, which was the only wicket that Neil Wagner got in that innings. But that's still symbolic of what we're saying about this Blackcaps team performance. Jamieson had been bowling fantastic throughout. He was man of the match. He was brilliant. Southey was bowling quite well, and then you get to the point where you've got to make a bowling change. You're searching for a wicket. We were able to bring on Neil Wagner and put the field back on the leg side and guys like, Southey would come around the wicket and change his angles as he often did. I think Jamieson bowled around the wicket a bit towards Rishabh Pant, and Wagner can do the same. Like, Wagner was coming around the wicket to the left-hander, like pitching that ball outside the leg and angling in towards his body. And we had ideas, and there was that there's that brilliant moment when Muhammad Shami comes in and takes a big swipe, outside edges it, overslips for 4. Very next delivery, Williamson takes, it was Tom Latham, he takes him out of like mid-wicket or something like that, chucks him at like, I think Simon Dool called it a fly slip position, so like, you've got the slip cord and you've got third man just sort of halfway in there, like on the edge of what in the one-day game would be the 30-meter circle. And it's the exact same delivery, the exact same shot, and Latham didn't even have to move. Like, the ball landed in his lap. He could have closed his eyes and caught it. He could have just taken his hat off and dangled it out there. The ball would have landed right in it. There was like ideas like that where it felt like the Blackcaps had not only had the options, the varieties to do these, but the knowledge and understanding of what those varieties are, how they work, and the ability, therefore, to play towards them, to manipulate the field, to come up with tactics that allow those varieties to be successful. And I just felt like India, where they were in a point earlier on in that Taylor-Williamson partnership where, a couple wickets and they might have been able to do something sneaky, at least make it real frisky for us. They weren't able to, there was sustained pressure at a time. There were a lot of plays and misses that was consistent throughout the whole test match. But eventually, and I think Ross Taylor made this point about that partnership, like he said, Williamson kept saying to him, like, it's going to get easier, it's going to get easier. And the thing is, when we were bowling, I don't think it did get easier for the Indian batsmen, because we were able to keep like just changing the point of attack and giving them different things to worry about. Don't know that India had that. I don't know that they were able to really like proactively take charge of the game and try to force something into happening. Maybe didn't take enough risks in order to like gamble with a low score. It's not lack of talent either with that Indian team, and I think people saying that their selections were wrong, I think that's a hindsight thing to say, isn't it? Maybe you would be more effective picking an extra seamer ahead of Ravi Jadeja, but as Kohli himself said afterwards, that's not really the case unless you've got like a fast bowling all-rounder. And there's really only one team in the world that has one of those at the moment. It's England with Ben Stokes. Like, I think they picked their best 11 players, and they know who their best 11 players are. And I think trying to second guess that selection afterwards is, I don't know, I think it's a little bit futile. But definitely that contrast between the Blackcaps having that team-based performance, having that variety to what they do, the different options, the knowledge of those options, the ability to like manipulate things and be proactive and try to force things to happen. Like, Test cricket is one of those death by 1,000 cuts things. It takes like 5, in this case 6 days to unfold, and little moments can have big ramifications when enough of them add up over time, and there's certainly enough time for that to be the case in these kind of things. And it just felt like there were a lot of those moments where the Blackcaps were slightly better, which ended up leading towards a bloody World Test Championship, mate.
And there was only 4 bowlers used for the Blackcaps in the second innings. Only 4 batsmen required to chase down the winning runs. So, beautiful thing there. When in this test did you feel like the most dubious or the most skeptical that the Blackcaps would win?
Oh, that's an interesting question. It wasn't before the test. Before the test, I didn't really. I'm not necessarily one who like. I try not to do like easy predictions and things like that. So it's like let the game flow sort of thing. Don't think too far ahead. I just didn't really think about what it would be like after the test match, whether we would have won or would have not won. So probably, because most of the bowling effort was pretty good in the first innings. There was a point where, who was it? I think Coley and Rahane had a partnership, and that was sort of threatening to take it away. But even then, it always felt like one wicket would open things up, and that's exactly what happened. And we got Coley very early that next day. Was it day? Must have been 4 or 5. I don't know. It's too confusing with the washed out days, but even then, when it felt like they were really threatening to maybe change the course of the game as it seemed like it was going, the Blackcaps were swift to respond. So I don't know. Maybe towards the middle stages of our first innings, where we were in a position hoping to be able to set a large lead and bowl them out and hopefully win by an innings or have a small total to chase, and then suddenly it became clear that, I mean, the tail did excellently to put on some late runs, and listening to Coley afterwards saying that he felt they were 30-40 runs short, shy of being able to really apply the amount of pressure they wanted in the fourth innings. You only have to think of the 32-run lead that the Blackcaps got, largely thanks to the batting of their tail enders. I think Williamson got out just after we had got that first innings lead. So that's on Tim Southey and on Trent Bolt, and Neil Wagner didn't score anything, but also Kyle Jamieson having a little bit of a slog before that and changing the momentum a little bit and opening the game up a bit and getting the field to spread, allowing guys to actually score some runs rather than the absolute grueling cricket that was coming before that. So maybe there was a point there later in our innings where suddenly we weren't going to get the first innings lead we wanted, and that was sweaty, but we still did battle away to get a lead. And then I think the moment that would have been the case is if we hadn't got early wickets on the last day. If India again, it was Kohli, wasn't it? And Kohli and Pujara, if they had batted, just survived the first hour comfortably, even just that much, would have started to, but definitely the first session. If they'd got out of the first session losing only maybe 1 wicket, it starts to feel like this game is petering out towards a draw. But that's not the case. It's not what happened. Kyle Jamieson got both of them out and just did exactly what the Blackcaps, the man understood his assignment. He came in and got the wickets that we needed. There were points where it felt like it could have drifted in that direction, where it could have started to feel if the play had gone on that way for another hour or something like that. But every time there was a tipping point moment like that, it changed. It's the Blackcaps did something positive to arrest that threat.
And that's what you're alluding to with the tactical decisions, and what I was kind of alluding to in previous episodes about, and especially the Almost Daily podcast, the adapting and the plans and the execution, all that stuff comes together under the strategic tactical umbrella, because you had those, that's the thing, whenever it feels like the game's drifting away from the Blackcaps, or it's entering that phase where a couple of batsmen are set, or a bowler's getting when a couple of batsmen are getting set, Kane Williamson and the Blackcaps have the ability to do something to change that energy. And I believe that's the same vein as something I saw this morning was the bowling slightly wider to Kohli. And that's something that a lot of teams in world cricket have highlighted as, if there is any weakness for Kohli, it's just get him fishing outside off stump early in his innings. And some of those deliveries Jamieson threw outside off stump, they didn't move at all. They were just straight up and down, especially, and also the one that took his wicket, just kind of back of a length, and Kohli just kind of half-hearted played a back foot shot to it. A lot of those deliveries weren't moving, and I viewed that as okay, Kohli was not out in both innings, right, overnight. And then the Blackcaps dismissed him early on the next day.
Yeah, both times, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just an instance like that where, I don't know, you would have seen the Phoenix Suns and were they playing the Clippers yesterday, where the Phoenix Suns were able to win that game. Bro, the last 5 minutes of an NBA game these days are fucking terrible. But something happened.
Apparently the last 90 seconds of that game took 21 real-time minutes.
Yeah, that's some bullshit. No wonder your views are declining. Oh, any of those sports where it's like, oh, we're losing viewers. It's like, well, your viewing experience sucks ball bags, so no surprises. But the point there was that the Phoenix Suns they got a beneficial break and play to set up the final play for DeAndre Ayton to get his dunk, and that wasn't a timeout. That was something just random, like a video review that offered them the opportunity to sit down and devise a plan to win the game. And I think just in this example, if you know that you're coming out to Virat Kohli batting on the last day of a World Test Championship final, there is a chance for you as a team to make a really clear plan. In the Blackcaps case, probably a couple plans to make sure you dismiss Virat Kohli. And from what I saw, that's what every intention was. This is what we're going to do to get Virat Kohli out. Yes, Jamison does have the hooping in-swinger. Yes, Jamison is also going to move the ball away, which he did to get wickets in the test. Those are things that Virat Kohli might be anticipating. What's a Virat Kohli weakness that has been identified around the world? As like maybe this might work to dismiss one of the best batsmen to ever walk on planet Earth. Just keep it outside 6th or 7th stump. And just you'll catch his edge at some time if you can maintain that accuracy. And what do you know? That morning, they execute that plan. And those are like little moments. You said the fly slip. Like just little stuff like that where it's like, okay, we have a chance to actually think about what we're doing. We have a chance to, and that's like, whether it's overnight or Williamson and Taylor just thinking on the fly to get a fly slip and then fly away with the World Test Championship final. All those moments where they can set an intention, we are going to do this. We know we can do it and we can execute it. That is really beneficial. I think that's the seed of all the tactical stuff, the strategic stuff, the adapting from day to day, because every day of this test match changed in some way. I think it was just that's like a key element. We've got the team success, a bunch of guys chipping in, and we've got this tactical, strategic element of the Blackcaps, which felt like the Blackcaps won at every little juncture with that strategic battle.
And that's where you find those small margins, eh? Like, that's where you find the difference between two otherwise pretty evenly matched teams. And, that's how you win big games as well. And the Blackcaps have, it's funny because I looked it up for one of the newsletter things for one of the Substacks. Last Friday, I think it would have been in that edition, and New Zealand's record against India in ICC tournaments is amazing. Like they've won something like 8 out of the last 10 games they've played against them. That includes like a Cricket World Cup semi-final. That includes, I think it includes the 2000 Champions Trophy final, which is the only other time the Blackcaps have ever won a major trophy, and the Champions Trophy is the least major of all the major trophies. So I think this one comfortably outshines that. Like, I don't know what it is, but New Zealand have a habit of doing quite well against India and in these big occasions. And I think that some of that is probably just a little bit of fluke. And when you're talking about crossing like generations like that streak goes back long before many of the players that are in the team now were even playing cricket at all. So pretty hard to compare between generations and that sort of thing. But definitely there's something about this Blackcaps team where they don't fold under pressure. They know how to fall back on the patterns and the structures that have got them to this place in the first place, and they rely on each other in that way. They'll trust their teammates to do what they're supposed to do. Like, I think there was definitely some trickiness after Tim Southee dropped Rishabh Pant in slips, but while there was a lot of like the amount of times the commentators went on and on about that as well. I was just like, yes, it could be a big moment, but it's not a big moment yet until Rishabh Pant smashes 100 of 80 balls or something. And actually, for all his aggression, like, and he was like the one guy overwhelmingly in that Indian, certainly after Kohli and Rahane got out, like for the rest of that order, he was the one dude who really felt like he was really trying to take the game back away, like back by the scruff of the neck. He was doing what he needed to do. He was playing his natural game, which the Blackcaps would say, like everything I was just saying before, that's one way to surmise that is the Blackcaps play their natural game and they know they can trust that. Like, Rishabh Pant felt like he could get out at any moment. It was a blistering innings, but he was scoring at, like, for all those big shots, he was scoring at a strike rate of like 50. He wasn't actually getting the ball away. He wasn't actually scoring the runs he was trying to score. I just thought that got, that perspective got overshadowed a little bit just because of the big moment of Southey dropping that catch. And, you know, he dropped one. He wasn't going to drop another one. And I think that was the Henry Nicholls catch, wasn't it? That got Rishabh Pant out in the end. And every time they showed a replay of that catch, it just got better and better. Like every time you see a different angle of that one, it's like, at first it's just the ball skied in the air. You assume someone's going to catch it when you realize it's landing in the field of play. And then someone does catch it. And then you're just celebrating, sweet as, we got a big wicket. It's only when you really watch the replays on those where you see how he was like having to run back and catch it over his shoulder. And that's so difficult. And, to execute in the big moment like that. I mean, that's the thing. The Blackcaps dropped him once. They didn't drop him twice. That's like, you can maybe get away with a little moment like that as long as you don't allow it to like compound. And they didn't. Like, that's, even when there was a mistake, they held firm to what they were doing otherwise and kept on out at there to get the result, man.
Yeah, so Rishabh Pant hit a strike rate of 46. And these Blackcaps batsmen had superior strike rates. Kyle Jamieson, 131. Tim Southey, 65. Trent Boult, 87. So Rishabh Pant, for all his wailing, he hit 4 boundaries and 88 deliveries. So it doesn't... like, it kind of seems like, I don't know, like in a spiritual sense, like especially just personal experience, when I'm stressed or when I'm fearful, my actions become how Rishabh Pant batted, you know, like it becomes a bit scattered and a bit like frantic and hectic and bad habits creep in and it all turns into a shit show. Like, it just, the way Rishabh Pant batted didn't reflect a guy in supreme control of like Colin de Grandhomme bats a certain way, and it's just kind of like, this is how I bat, this is what I do. Yeah, it might work, it might not work, but I am who I am, and I love what I do. Rishabh Pant has a similar vibe to him, but that innings didn't seem in any, like, dose of control, and especially, like, because he's comparable to CDG, and it's just, like, completely different. Like, you just, like, walking down the crease and just fucking wafting at deliveries and edging deliveries all over the show. Like, you're not really middling anything, let alone trying to put your team in the best position by maybe just batting out the rest of the afternoon. But that's for India to cry about, really.
Yeah, and I didn't even know that it was the wrong approach from him either. Like, that is how he likes to play. He's an aggressive batsman.
Well, that's all he does. That's all he does. Like, it's the same with Colin de Grandhomme. That's what he does. That's who he is. That's why he's in the team. It just wasn't effective, and that's the difference. Like, the Blackcaps were effective in executing who they are and what they do, and India were less effective.
Yeah, and like in the Blackcaps' first innings, when you had that, like, the world's longest innings without a 50 for Kane Williamson there, with just like it was difficult. It was difficult to watch. Like, he looked in control defensively, like that part of it he had down pat, but it was very difficult to find scoring options on top of that. And he batted for so long, and he like occupied the crease for so long, held things together through just such difficult conditions, and that was crucial. That was essential to the Blackcaps getting into position to be able to score runs later on and to take wickets later on and have a lead, something to bowl to, and to continually apply pressure and to just like not be put under more pressure than need be themselves, and all those good things. But Kyle Jamieson coming out, I didn't necessarily expect it of him. I sort of thought maybe you'd wait till Southey comes in before you try to start hoofing the ball, just swinging bats and trying to make large contact and start playing baseball with cricket bats. Like, I thought maybe you wait till Tim Southey comes in before that, but Kyle Jamieson came in with a very clear purpose. He was going to swing the bat. He was going to try hit that ball very hard. And it actually, I think it, like, what did he get, 20 odd? 21 of 16 deliveries. Like, it's a 16 ball cameo. But it did open the game up. Like, he did stretch the field out. He did allow Kane Williamson to start getting some singles himself, and getting the bowlers to adjust their lines and to start thinking about things from a defensive point of view and not just an attacking point of view. And that sort of paved the way for Tim Southey to come in later on and to play a very mature innings for Tim Southey. Like, he did hit a couple sixes, one absolute boomer over Cal Corner, but he also batted 46 deliveries with a strike rate of 65, and I looked this up as it was happening. I think it's the longest Tim Southey has batted at the crease in Test cricket in terms of deliveries faced since the tour to Sri Lanka. It was so just after the last World Cup, which was the very first series the Blackcaps played in the Test Championship cycle. So, like, big ups to Tim Southey there for a very important, like, he scored 30, the Blackcaps lead was 32, so that's a big deal there. But also Jamison's innings sort of, it's overshadowed because he was there for a good time and a long time, but it did open things up a little bit to allow the tail enders to be able to play some shots, to have a, just changing the momentum of the game a little bit like that. And I think Rishabh Pant could have done something similar like that for India, and definitely he was trying to, and I think it was the right option. You definitely don't want, like, you don't pick Rishabh Pant so he can come in and start batting like Cheteshwar Pujara or something like that, but he just, the difference was execution in that level, as you say. Like, he swung hard, he just didn't hit the ball.
And same with the Williamson, Southey, Jamieson thing. Like, you can have Pujara in the team because you've got someone like Pant coming in, and like free-flowing attacking players like Sharma and Gill and Kohli. So it's all about balance, and everyone has their little role to fill. Let's dwell on these Black
Which is
Caps.
a reason why I don't like the idea that the this idea that the Indian team was like the wrong 11, or it's just not balanced enough. Like, I think that's a supremely well-balanced 11. They just lost the game. Like, you don't have to overreact to that thing. It doesn't have to be like, every time English cricket loses Ashes, or even when they lost to us there was like all these think pieces about how disastrous their batting is and how county stuff needs to change, and like the selections are wrong, and all the like big referendums going on and being discussed in public. Like, that doesn't have to be, like, India just lost. It was a really high-level test match, really high standard from both teams, and New Zealand were just a little bit better, and India lost. It doesn't mean that India made, like, severe, drastic mistakes in selection, or that they doomed themselves, they shot themselves in the foot with who they picked, and why didn't they have an extra, like, no, maybe an extra seamer might have helped, but that's still hindsight. It's not helpful. Ultimately, I think that's still, like, that was India's best 11. It's a fantastically good 11. I think it's brilliantly balanced for reasons like you just said. Like, you've got the guys who can bat all day. Pujara doing like Rahul Dravid 2.0. You've got Rishabh Pant, who bats like a 23-year-old in 2021. You know, he can score quick runs, and he can do his little like Adam Gilchrist type things to change the momentum of a game coming in at like 6. You know, it's a real, and then Jadeja and Ashwin are both excellent batsmen for the place in the order that they come in. And with brilliant like bowling stats too. Like, they're both genuine all-rounders at this point. Ashwin maybe not so much with Ashwin. His batting isn't quite at that level where you could call him an all-rounder, but he's certainly, like, for a number 8, he will score important runs. He has Test century. Like, I think that's an outstanding Indian 11. I don't think there's any dramas with the selection just because it was picked a few days. Like, I think those are just easy targets easy darts to throw at India because they lost the match, when ultimately the only thing you got to say is that they just they lost the match. It was a close game, and they were slightly not as good, and that's enough. Like, it doesn't have to be a disaster either way.
Ashwin does have 5 Test centuries, but
five of them, Jesus.
3 of them are in India and 2 of them are in West Indies, so he's doing it in low and slow decks, so shout out to him. Let's just dwell on the Blackcaps batsmen here for a second, and like, I wasn't really aware that some must have been Pakia principal decided to change Laturu Taylor's name, so we'll refer to him as Laturu Taylor. Like, we don't need to follow on from this Jerry back in the day who couldn't deal with the Samoan name. So that's just we're on board with that, Laturu Taylor. But I just thought that his name was different and wasn't a case of some random joker struggling with that name. Let's just say that. Conway scored runs once again. Like, there's this element to this team where Jamison and Conway are just like, what the fuck? Who are these dudes? Like, what are these dudes doing? They're just Conway. Jamison, amazing. We've spoken about him. Conway, Test average is 63, ODI average is 75, T20 international average of 59. Most impressively, his strike rates are completely aligned with the format. T20's international strike rate 151, ODI strike rate 88, Test strike rate 50, and these are aligned with his domestic work. The T20 strike rate is only 129, so he just was blasting shit all over the show in the T20 International Summer that we just had. That's why he's got a strike rate of 151. List A cricket, 86 compared to his ODI strike rate of 88, and first class strike rate of 55 compared to his Test strike rate of 50. So that's all in alignment, and that is the sign of a supremely quality batsman who just knows their game inside out. They know how to adapt to the challenges of each format. He's not someone who is taking his exciting T20 play into Test cricket and being inconsistent. No, he has been extremely consistent in his 3 tests so far because he adapts his skill set to what is required in Test cricket. It's kind of ridiculous, but happy to have him on our team. Tom Latham just did his job as an opener, as we always say. See off the new ball. 30 off 104 deliveries was his highlight. Kane Williamson, 49 and 52. Pretty magical test for him because he looked like the best batsman on the field from either team. He was the best batsman. And it was good that we got the 2 sides of Williamson, I reckon. First innings, Williamson was doing what was required for his team. He needed to see off many deliveries. It was a difficult pitch to bat on. Taylor got hit in the head from a good length ball, and it was I think that was off Bumrah, but and Taylor's dismissal in the first innings was a delivery off Shami, when he went to drive, but there was just this extra kicker bounce, so the ball bounced over the middle of his bat, and he mistimed it, and he spooned it up to cover. And it was like this pitch was offering swing, seam, and a weird amount of bounce, which was in favour of all the bowlers, but it was a nightmare to bat on, as seen in those examples. And Kane Williamson put away a couple of strokes, knuckled down, and led his team through a gritty first innings. Second innings, does the hard work, but he's also able to express himself. And he had that ball sizzling along the turf. Couple of drives, couple of punches, and so on. And then, of course, Laturu Taylor, 47 not out in the second innings. After, it's not I think he did have a 50-plus score. This just shows, how weird the cricket milestones are, because you look at Williamson's 2 knocks, and you're like, which one was better? One of them he got over 50, one of them he didn't. The one that he didn't get over 50 was probably more important. So it's those markers are a bit loose, maybe. Taylor did hit 80 at Birmingham, and of course we've talked about it a lot. The 33 at Lords, when he kind of sacrificed his form and put up a blockbuster 33 to move the game along selflessly. And for Lutulu Taylor, he had a weird old summer. Here are his last 10 games. T20 Super Smash game, 0. Ford Trophy, 0, 9, 68 not out, 2. Plunkett Shield, 450. ODI versus Bangladesh, 7. First test at Lords, 14-33. Second test at Birmingham, 80 and 0 not out. World Test Championship final versus India in Southampton, 11 and 47. So it's kind of like Ross Taylor's summer, I remember this vividly, was either less than 10 or over 50. And there was a bit of that nature of the early showings here in England. But the key knock was that knock at Lords where he tried to score more freely and just do what was required of the team. And I think that might have played him into a bit of a form, because his next things was the 80, 0 not out, and then the 47 not out to seal this victory. I'm not sure if you want to chat about Conway wildcard or just because if we get into Williamson and Taylor, we're going to get into some wider, bigger picture Blackcap stuff that will probably wrap up the podcast. So maybe just start with Conway and Latham. Any ideas, any thoughts? Especially this run that Conway's on right now.
Yeah, Conway's just nuts. I don't even know what there is to say about him. He's just another one like Jamison who knows the assignment. He as you expressed well there, he knows how to adjust. He knows how to score the runs that are needed of him. And Latham's just an outstanding opening batsman. And there's a book I want to read that's just come out, sort of talking about cricket analytic-y type things and whatever. And the fellas that wrote it, I think it was a co-write, were on Test Match Special, so you probably heard this as well, where they were talking about some trends and misconceptions and ideas and stuff like that in cricket. One thing that was really interesting they were talking about, and this the main reason I heard this and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm going to have to read this book and find out more, was talking about swing bowling. And they reckon there's a tipping point at about 135 k's an hour where it doesn't really swing above that mark. I thought that's pretty interesting when you look at the speeds that Southey, Bolt, Jamison, Wagner all hit is normally around 132, 134 sort of range for the Bolt, especially Jamison as well. Jamison will push a little bit faster. Bolt can definitely get a fair bit quicker, but it just it shows can bowl quicker is one thing. Taking a little bit off in order to get better swing and pose more questions to the batsman is another thing. So that was interesting. But then one point they made as well was looking at considering that the opening batsman have to face the new ball every single time. By definition, that's what their job is, to face the new ball. They reckon you can sort of statistically, you basically just add 5 runs to the average of any opening batsman to be able to compare it to someone in the middle order. So you're looking at Ross Taylor, whose average is about 45.8, something like that. Williamson's, I think, is only a shade under 54 now. This is through the roof after a good not out here. And he scored effectively 100 runs in this test match, didn't he? He was dismissed once in the middle of those 100 runs, but huge offerings from him. His average basically in the mid 50s at this point. Devon Conway's coming in, started his average is plummeting because he started off with a double 100, but it's still mid 60s, 60 something. That's a little too early to really compare. We know that Henry Nicholls has an average of, what's he in the sort of above 40, but let me check where he's up to at this point. 42.71, very solid for a number 5 who also, that's another understand your assignment role where like the number 5, sometimes you're coming in at 300 for 3 and you just like looking to score quickly and advance the game. Other times you're coming in at 30 for 3 and you're in big trouble and you've really just got to like grind it out. Like that's a real pivot position in the batting order. And Henry Nicholls is very good at that. BJ Walling's average has dipped a bit in his last year or two of Test cricket. I think he finishes in the like 37 range, something like that. But still, for the number 6, for the lowest batting average in the top order, that's great. Like, and Tom Latham is, where are we? 41.38. But then add that 5-run buffer to his opening thing, and we're talking about someone who's averaging roughly 46. Like, to be able to compare him to the middle order, 46. That's amazing. Like, that's absolutely brilliant what he does. And I can't look this up on the fly as we're recording, but I do want to, maybe I'll chuck it in the email or something, or a tweet or something like that. But I do want to see just like how, because it didn't feel like we lost any cheap, like the opening partnership and all 3 of these tests, it didn't really feel like they were got out early. I'm just trying to remember. My brain isn't functioning at full capacity right now because I'm working on about 4 hours of sleep on consecutive nights too. So difficult. It's just, I guess the rained off day did come in handy for one thing. At least allowed me to hit reset on the sleep. Cannot wait till I go to bed tonight. But yeah, it's. I don't know, my brain's fried now from talking, but like I don't think they got out early in any of those guards. Yeah, I'll have to check, but
no, they did.
They did. Oh well, there was one against England.
Yeah,
where we were chasing the short total as well, where Conway did get out relatively early, didn't he? But like for the most part, it's not just like one of them as well, as both of them were really taking the shine off the ball, batting extended periods. I think the majority of the time they each would have faced like 50 plus deliveries more often than they didn't. It shouldn't be taken so long to say this because I need to check the stats to be sure, but that's just perfect opening battership, isn't it? It's perfect. That's exactly what you need to do. Is you don't necessarily, like, if you can go on and turn that into 100, beautiful, but you don't have to because Williamson, Taylor, Nicholls come in and they might turn it into 100, and like just allowing them to be able to do what they do. And this is why the opening batsmen have that little buffer. It's why their averages are supposedly like 5 runs lower, but it's such a crucial, essential job for the team. And Tom Latham is as good an opener as anyone in world cricket right now. And Devon Conway looks like he's right up there with him. So that's pretty impressive. It's pretty good. It's the fantastic signs.
How do you like just feel about this? Like, because we started covering Blackcap stuff right at that weird juncture, kind of like around. I vividly remember being fascinated by the Ross Taylor Sri Lanka stuff, and when I was that was kind of the moment where I just that's the moment where I remember being the most hostile about the Blackcaps, but that's because maybe it's like the critical thinking element of the Blackcaps as opposed to just like, I'm a Kiwi from New Zealand, I've grown up playing cricket, I like cricket, this is the New Zealand cricket team. And so it's a bit strange because, like, not to take credit for the Blackcaps' rise to success, but it kind of has run parallel to our journey of writing about cricket in New Zealand and the Blackcaps and all levels of cricket, because when you're looking at some of those earlier days, we're looking at Henry Nicholls is trying to crack into the team. Neil Wagner isn't a part of the team, and he emerges as a new factor. And it's kind of like all the pieces have just been building, and that kind of also puts into perspective the arrivals of Conway and Jamieson as the bow on top of all the work that had been done before. This was a team. We all know the yarn. We all know the change in identity and stuff like that, which shows you how important identity is to a team's success, because there are a lot of teams that don't have that obvious identity. I think of a team like the Warriors. Like, what are the Warriors known for in playing rugby league? Nothing. There's just nothing. Like, what does this team do well all the time? It's just there's nothing. And that's why they haven't had a lot of a success. Whereas you look at the Blackcaps' identity. Another example is the England cricket team. What is the identity of the England cricket team? It's a fucking absolute shambles for a variety of different reasons. They don't have a concentrated effort towards anything. And without that, you can't even start to ponder the idea of the identity for your team. It's been well documented, the identity of this Blackcaps team, and it's to such an extent where they just live it. They just embody their identity because a lot of it's just built on being a Kiwi and playing cricket how Kiwis would play cricket. And I don't think it's accidental that we have this success. And we've been on that journey of documenting this and following this. And you think of some of the lads like who have come and gone throughout this period. And it's kind of like there's been a process of whittling down the talent pool and really good blokes coming up, as well as some other people who at some stage felt like they were going to be key figures in the test team. Like, you look at someone like Corey Anderson. What had, like, there was just like a, holy shit, we've got a cricketer like Corey Anderson in New Zealand cricket. This dude is really good. And for whatever reason, Corey Anderson is now a complete non-factor in New Zealand cricket, to the point where he's apparently a factor for USA cricket. Like, just some of those little stories and bits of nuance that have littered the past almost 10 years. And then you've got the World Cups. You got 2015 World Cup, which was epic. You got 2019 World Cup. You've got with the lack of Test cricket. Like, all these things have happened. All these players have come and gone. And it's been a weird and long journey. There were niggly moments where it was just incredibly frustrating dealing with all things cricket in New Zealand. But it's somehow, I mean, I kind of boil it down to Kane Williamson, I reckon, in summary. I reckon, like, Kane Williamson is not the instigator for where we're at right now. We all know the story. Brendan McCullum, Mike Hesson, they come together and they come up with this identity. Cool. But it's the takeover of Williamson, and because he got Ross Taylor on board, he's got Tim Southee on board, he's got Trent Boult on board, he's got Tom Latham on board, he's got Watling on board. Like, these dudes rallied behind Williamson, their skipper, and everything about this team is Kane Williamson. Even to the extent where, and I always mention this, it's Williamson and Taylor who are making the decisions on the field. There was like a break and play, maybe in this test, maybe in one of the English tests where they were waiting for a review, or there was just a break and play, and Williamson and Taylor were away from the playing group, like mid-pitch, talking strategy or whatever. And the aspect of Williamson where he has promoted Ross Taylor, or Latutu Taylor, sorry, that was silly. He has promoted him to like a, because I always think he's the brains behind a lot of the stuff. Obviously, Williamson's really smart, but it's just what am I trying to say? It's just the humility and respect for someone like Taylor to elevate him within the group. Because Latutu Taylor's there adding guidance a lot of the time to Williamson's captaincy. And it's Latutu Taylor who's in the slips talking with Tom Latham, talking with Tim Southee. Like, I don't want to undersell his influence on the team, and I think that's due to Williamson's vibe, where he's trying to get the most out of everyone in the team. And for Taylor, that means tapping into his wisdom and his standing in international cricket. And then you look at guys like Jamieson and Conway, guys who have come into the team recently, Tom Blundell, Will Young, Daryl Mitchell, those type of characters. It's the same effect with them. because he is embracing them into the team, let alone the guys he's played a lot of cricket with, to get the best out of them as well. So it just seems like this is the peak of Kane Williamson's captaincy, where he has a team where every corner you look in the team, Williamson's not there in every corner, but his influence feels present in all those little corners, all those little pockets that make this team who they are. I think Williamson is the guiding light. He is the full moon illuminating this journey for the Blackcaps.
Beautiful, yeah. There was a moment in the aftermatch where I think it was Mike Atherton was interviewing Luteru Ross Potor Lotte Taylor after the game, and asked him about the same point that's been made a few times about when did this when did the timeline of this sort of begin? And they always go back to the 45 all out in South Africa, January 2013. And then they asked Ross about that. They asked Luteru Taylor about that, and he said I don't know. He just said something diplomatic about it. But I'm sitting there watching the telly, being like, well, obviously, Ethers, you haven't done your homework, because if you had, you'd understand that Taylor was not on that South Africa tour. This was directly after the Sri Lanka debacle, and the irony of it is that it wasn't even the wrong decision. McCullum clearly was the guy who should have been captain, but the fact they bungled that so badly, it's not what happened, it's how badly it was handled, and to the point where New Zealand's best batsman at that point felt like he couldn't be a part of the tour to South Africa. Next thing, 45 all out. I think that's going back a little bit too far. I think that was the start of a different thing. I think that was the start, that was a major moment for Brendan McCullum's Blackcaps. And then that led on to something else where, the Kane Williamson thing and the Test cricket revival, I think came a little bit, I think probably there's points, I don't even know if there's a specific moment where you can look at, but definitely it's something that began to swell over a few home summers, and just Williamson's emergence and that, and Taylor's getting back into the team and batting outstandingly and scoring a heap of runs and whatever. But looking at that 45 all out, you have Martin Guptill and Brendan McCullum were opening the batting. Williamson came in at 3, scored 13. He was the top scorer. Dean Brownlee, Daniel Flynn, BJ Watling was there, James Franklin, Doug Bracewell, Jeetan Patel, Trent Bolt, and Chris Martin. So there's really only Williamson, Watling, and Bolt from this 11 that were in that 11. There's a lot of evolution that goes on when people look at the great teams in Test cricket and things like that. It's not something that's static. It's not like you can say the pick out a different one from a different era, but even that's kind of tricky. The amount of games where you would have had an ODI Blackcaps team that had Stephen Fleming, Nathan Astle, Chris Harris, Chris Cairns, Craig McMillan, etc. All these guys, all the guys that you'd think of from that sort of era of cricket. The amount of games where you've had everyone at once and everyone in peak form and stuff that just doesn't happen. That's not how this sport works. It's a constant evolution. It's a constant in and out. If you stay static, you fall behind. And that's why it's kind of another beautiful thing of this is how it's just a perfect transition for BJ Watling to go out on a high and Tom Blundell to just seamlessly come in and be the new wicketkeeper. And I think I quite like the there's absolutely never going to be any shade on BJ Watling. I do quite like that Tom Blundell is a little bit more of a stroke player coming in at 6 in the future. I think that might help the Blackcaps down the line is the way that things are going. I think that might be helpful for them, but in terms of the balance of their own side. But there's not a lot of continuity between that 45 all out and this, except maybe Kane Williamson, who I think there's a cool parallel here. Nice one to sort of towards the end of this podcast to chuck up there, but 45 all out, one of the low points of the last, probably performance-wise, the low point of the last decade. Emotionally, probably still the World Cup final, but 45 all out, and Kane Williamson, the only man to get to double figures in that innings. I think there's an interesting parallel there when you look back at another famous scorecard in New Zealand cricket history, which was 26 all out, where Bert Sutcliffe, who from everything I've read about Bert Sutcliffe, he just seems like he was the left-handed Kane Williamson, and a man who, it's not, I mean, ahead of his time, yes, I don't know, like he was, it's not that he was ahead of his time, it's that he was ahead of his team. It was just one of those guys who, him and John Reid were just so much better than everyone else that New Zealand had at that time, and it just goes to show how, like, as good as Williamson is, it's beautiful to have a fantastic team around him as well that allow his performances to not just be in vain or just, again, like batting from behind every time and constantly under pressure and part of a losing cause more often than not kind of thing. Like, it's great. It's team cricket, another, theme of the day. But Bert Sutcliffe in that 26 all out, the only man to get to double figures in that innings as well. The parallel between the two men in terms of their performances, just how good they are on a world stage, that kind of thing, and even just to the darkest days of their career in terms of the lowest score either was ever involved in Test cricket, one of the lowest score any team has ever been involved in Test cricket, and those guys being the only ones who scored runs, sort of thing. Like, there's a parallel there. There's also quite a funky parallel of, like, 26 all out is a bit of a laughingstock stat now at this day and age, like nearly 70 years later. Like, it's not something that anyone remembers fondly, but it's also something with the passing of time. It's not something that, first of all, it's not something that many people remember full stop, because there aren't many people left alive who would have experienced that. But, with the passing of time, it loses its sort of emotional resonance, but it is still one of those, like, punchline stats that Kiwi cricket fans know. But what's interesting is, like, because I read John Reid's book not that long ago, like sort of last year. I've read a few other things about like history of Kiwi cricket kind of thing. It's always interesting to me, and that was a devastating low point for that team at that time. They were humiliated. Like, it's not something now where you just, oh well, this is 26 all out. Oh, maybe we'll beat that one day. I don't know, but like back then that was like hang your head in shame kind of thing, and it was a major impetus for the fact that they went on a year or two later to win their first ever Test match. It was against the West Indies, and it was at Eden Park, the exact same ground where they were bowled out for 26. Look at what the Blackcaps done here. It's a lot further, like it's 8 years in between. It's a lot different, 8.5 years. It's a lot different in terms of like the time frames of things, but it's only 2 years since the World Cup final, and it's in the same country as the World Cup final was, and there's a couple parallels between both of those things, which is kind of, one of those lovely ways in which the circular nature of I don't know, destiny, fate, the world, or whatever, just random chance and luck, I don't know, but the circular way that these things work is kind of I've said this word a few times in this little segment, but it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. The weather is beautiful. World Test Championship glory is beautiful. Life is beautiful. Stay beautiful. Here, card to yourself. Cheer. What a time to be alive here in New Zealand. While the world explodes, we are exploding with World Test Championship glory. Kia kaha, stay beautiful. Cheer, cheer.